Happy Monday, folks, and welcome back to #AskGSM, the weekly mailbag video where I answer your questions from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube right here in this video forum. We are only 24 hours removed from the very enjoyable, in my opinion, Fastlane pay-per-view and are now on the fast track to WrestleMania. Can you believe it? We are only a little less than 5 weeks away from WrestleMania 31, which is shaping up to be a great show. Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, John Cena and Rusev seemingly. I mean, that could be, I'm a little on the fence about that, but you get what I mean. Sting and Undertaker, or Sting and, I'm sorry, that's what it should be, but Sting and Triple H had a very enjoyable segment last night. I really liked that. Undertaker, Bray Wyatt, and a few other matches as well. So I'm really looking forward to the show. We'll find out tonight more on Raw. So this will not be this will not be filmed after Raw. We don't know what's set in stone for WrestleMania. A lot of the stuff anyway, just most of the main matches. We'll find out more tonight on Raw. But nevertheless, though, today's video will be more focused on the backlash, the aftermath of the Fastlane pay-per-view as we quickly approach WrestleMania 31. So that being said, this week's question, starting from the YouTube side of things, from Pig Window, their question was, the first of a few, now that the primetime players, millions of dollars, seem to be back, do you see them winning the tag team championships this time around? I hope so. I was really happy to see them back together. I predicted that a couple weeks ago on Bleacher Report, could not have been happier to see it happen last week on Raw. And it really is unfortunate. I mean, it's great that they're back together and they can add to the tag team division. I talked about that a few weeks ago. But, I mean, it really goes to show that WWE couldn't find anything for these guys as singles competitors. I think they can both be very good. Not like world champion material or anything. I know some people can say that about Titus O'Neil. I personally don't believe so. I think he's good. I don't think he's great. But, I mean, I think these guys do have futures as mid-carders, but they didn't push him properly. Young got injured. O'Neil they fucking wasted for the year that he was on the roster, but whatever. I'm glad they're back together. They can be a great addition to the tag team division. And I'm hoping, like Darren Young said in his, I think it was the Raw Fallout video on their YouTube channel last week after Raw, that they can finally become tag team champions this time around. And he said maybe they kind of tone it up, they become more serious, and it's not official yet. They just had that one thing on Raw. They had something else on main event a couple days later, when Young came to the aid of Titus O'Neil in his match against Adam Rose. But so it's not official yet. But if they do get back together officially tonight on Raw or whenever, I do hope that they do win the tag team titles this time around. They should have a couple years ago when they were, when they had their first run back from 2012 to 2014. I think they're very good, and I'm hoping, it's not set in stone, but with the very few tag teams, like legitimate, credible tag teams we have right now, I'm hoping they get a run at some point in time. Especially now that we have heel tag team champions in Cesaro and Kid, which I think is awesome. Someone else asked a question about that in a minute, so I'll get back to that in a few minutes. But their second question was, where do you see The Miz going after his eventual split with Sandow when the split is complete? When the split is complete, where do you see The Miz going? Probably going to stay in the same kind of division where he was before the whole Mizdow thing started. I mean, granted, he was kind of doing the Hollywood shtick about 2 months before Mizdow came into the equation, but I could see him being a mid-carder for a while, kind of that IC US title level, which is, I mean, where he kind of belongs. I mean, I love The Miz. I don't ever see him becoming world champion again, which is probably for the better. A lot of people didn't like his reign. I enjoyed it. I digress. But, we are lacking a mid-card right now. We don't have a mid-card. We have the top-tier stars, the upper mid-carders like Ziggler, Ambrose, Ryback, those guys, and then the losers. You got your Zack Ryders, your Titus O'Neils, your Adam Roses, your Fandangos. There's really no in-between. I think Miz can really add to that. We have Barrett right now, but they're fucking burying him, of course. But, yeah, probably in that mid-card division once the thing with Sandow is complete. And I love what The Miz is doing. I will go so far as to say that he's doing some of the best work of his career right now. Some of the best work of his career since he was WWE champion 4 years ago. There was that long period of time where he wasn't doing anything. So I'm really hoping that once the whole Sandow thing is complete, he can go back to doing what he was doing before in the mid-card and kind of do some cool feuds with Ambrose, which would be awesome. I think that could be a really good feud, and Barrett and some others. Their next question was, with the seemingly soon-to-come feud between Bray Wyatt and The Undertaker, I mean, it was pretty much confirmed last night on Fastlane, but they asked us a week ago, on the horizon, I am still against it. This is mainly because of the question of who to put over. If you were to book the match, who would you put over? I talked about this last week, but I have the same exact concern. I think the feud, my issue is not with the feud itself, because I think the feud itself can be very, very good. It's a nice rub for Bray Wyatt. The characters are a little bit different, but they're a lot of the same, and a lot of the mystique, and a lot of the stuff that goes into the respective characters in The Undertaker and Bray Wyatt. And I remember when Wyatt first came to the main roster about 2 years ago, a lot of people were saying, oh, he should face him at WrestleMania 30 or 31. in retrospect, that's probably what they should have done. I would have settled for Taker, Wyatt, and then who did Taker face last year? Brock Lesnar. Cena and Lesnar again. Maybe instead of doing that in the summer, you do that at WrestleMania instead. Like, I would have been fine with that. Or you could have done Wyatt, somebody else, and then do Taker, Cena, which is what I've wanted to see for years. They missed the boat on it. There's really no point doing it now because it's reaching out on the line. So, yeah, that whatever. But still, though, I think Wyatt and Undertaker can be a really good match at WrestleMania. But like you said, the main concern for me and many others is who you put over. And it's really the lesser of two evils. I mean, look at it this way. If Bray Wyatt loses, you have him lose back-to-back years at WrestleMania. That loss to John Cena damaged him beyond belief. I don't care what anyone says. That feud with John Cena was a complete waste of time. He didn't go anywhere after that. The feud with Jericho was a little bit better. But the match at WrestleMania was not good. It wasn't terrible, but it was not good. It did not fit with the theme of the story they were trying to tell going into WrestleMania. The match at Extreme Rules was horrendous. And the match at Payback was really good, but by that point it was too little too late for Bray Wyatt, and he lost that match anyway. So that whole feud was a complete waste of time. That said, who do you put over at WrestleMania? Because The Undertaker too. I mean, again, I know he's getting old, but you can't go undefeated for 20 some odd years and then lose back-to-back years at WrestleMania. Like, to me, that makes no sense. I think Undertaker Sting next year, if Undertaker loses this year, it's still going to mean something, but Undertaker has to go into that WrestleMania with a win, as does Sting, in my opinion anyway, if you want that to get that full effect. Like, why does it matter? Why should I care about Sting going after Undertaker if he's at his weakest in the last 2 years? Like, and it's not like Undertaker can get his win back because he doesn't wrestle any other time aside from WrestleMania. So that's not going to work. But like I said, the lesser of two evils, I would put over Bray Wyatt. Undertaker is at least a solidified star. It doesn't make sense from a storyline standpoint because he went undefeated for 21 years or 24 years, whatever it was. Because technically he missed 2 WrestleManias, but whatever. Still though, he's a self-made star. He can bounce back from it. Bray Wyatt can't. At this point, he's had a hell of a role the last couple of months, and they need to go forward with his push by having him go over at WrestleMania. I doubt that's the case. I'm sure Undertaker will go over, and he'll do damage to Bray Wyatt, but it's really a lose-lose situation, in my opinion, regardless of who technically wins. So Jose K's got a couple questions as well. His first one: where will Luke Harper's career go from where you have seen so far as a Kane-like character, or who do you see him like as? And what is the ceiling for him from what you have seen so far? I think Luke Harper is very good. And someone else asked me this question. I'll get to that a little bit later. But I think Luke Harper is awesome, and there is absolutely no reason why they couldn't have put Luke Harper in that same role that Big Show is in right now, that Kane is in right now. Why couldn't he have not have been the big man for the Authority? You know what I mean? Like, he was associated with the Authority about late last year, right around the time of Survivor Series. And then after the feud of Ziggler kind of wrapped up, after the Intercontinental Championship, they haven't done anything with him. He's been losing constantly to Roman Reigns, to Daniel Bryan, to all these other people, and I just don't see the point in it. I mean, I think he's great. He's a great character. I mean, they could have some more character development with Luke Harper, but the in-ring skills from Luke Harper speak for themselves. Like, I don't know why they're not doing more with him. I don't really see him like anybody, but I know like there's a lot of comparisons to Bruiser Brody, which I can absolutely see from his in-ring style, the look, everything. I don't know if his career will mirror Bruiser Brody's. As a Kane, I don't think so. I mean, Kane had so many character switches in the way he came in. And you can make a case that the way that Luke Harper came in was kind of akin to Kane's and the whole brothers storyline, the Wyatt family, whatever. There will never be another Kane, in my opinion. The guy's been around for so long. One of the best character stories that WWE has ever told, if not the best story that WWE has ever told, with one character, including The Undertaker as well. But I don't really know who I would see him as, but I think he has a lot of potential. They really haven't tapped into it at all in the last couple of months. I know he was Intercontinental Champion, which was cool, but that lasted for a cup of coffee for a month last year, and they haven't done anything with him since. So I'm hoping they can get back on the track after WrestleMania ends and all the part-timers go away, and they can start pushing him again. Like I said, we need more mid-carders. He can be a very good mid-carder. Probably beyond that, but for right now, I think he can be a very good mid-carder, contending for the IC and US titles, but they need to utilize him in that fashion first. His next question was, what can Sandow and Cody Rhodes do after their gimmicks are done around WrestleMania? Stardust can go back to being Cody Rhodes. We kind of saw shades of that last night at Fastlane, and the potential is there with Cody Rhodes. And I don't want to see, he should stick with Stardust. He's good at the gimmick. I'm glad that he's dedicated to the gimmick, and he does it, he does it to his full ability. He puts everything into the character, which is awesome. Good for Cody. But the issue is that his untapped potential is as Cody Rhodes. Like, he's had a lot of shitty gimmicks over the years. You could thank creative for that. But he's made them all gold. I mean, no pun intended, but he's made the most out of everything he's been given over the last 5-6 years. And he mentioned last night, during his promo, he said he was the breakout star of the legacy. He was a dashing one. He was the prince. I don't remember that. But, he one of the greatest Intercontinental champions in recent memory, which I do agree with. And last, I know that's not saying much because the title's treated like shit. But, still, though, I do agree with the sentiment that he was one of the better Intercontinental champions. But like I was saying before, I think Cody Rhodes has main event written all over him. Maybe not right now. I can't see him, ending the feud with Goldust and then going right in the main event. But the guy could be a world champion if they booked him properly. But they haven't utilized the guy right in years. As for Sandow, I don't know if I could see him as a world champion, so to speak. He was kind of around that level a couple of years ago when he won Money in the Bank, and they haven't done anything with him since, aside from the whole Mizdow thing, which is awesome. Some people have said whether he keeps that gimmick once the feud wraps up with the Miz and that whole angle runs its course. Maybe. I think he should go back to being not like the original Sandow, like the intellectual savior of the masses. I don't know if he goes back to that exact same gimmick, but they got to keep him babyface, obviously. What they do with him, I'm not really sure, but he's so popular right now, and I think he will continue to be popular past this whole feud. And they can't go the same route like they did with Alex Riley a couple years ago, who took abuse from The Miz for nearly a year, finally broke out of his shell, was one of the most over guys in the roster at that time, and they had that really good match at Capital Punishment. They had a really good feud, in my opinion. It wasn't great or anything, but I thought it was decent for what it was. And it really put Alex Riley over in a big way. And then after he lost to The Miz a couple weeks after their first match, he went on to do nothing. Of course, the guy's finally getting back into the ring all these years later. That was 40 years ago. And they're finally doing something again, from what I understand, in NXT right now. And in the weeks to come. But they can't go that same route with Mizdow. They absolutely cannot go that same route with Sandow. Alex Riley was good, but I think Sandow was better. I think he knows his character better. He's better on the mic. He's better in the ring. And I think they can do a lot with him if they actually utilize him right. And I'm hoping they can do that once the gimmick runs its course, like you said, after WrestleMania. Is the next question, which he asked last night after the pay-per-view. Are Cesaro and Kid a more fun tag team than the Usos? From the point that the Usos are the same wrestlers individually, but Cesaro and Kid have enough tag team moves and have different styles that it's fresh when each are in? That's a very good question. Whether they're more fun as a tag team than the Usos is totally subjective. I can say they are, but the next person can say they aren't. Whether you enjoy them is really all up to you. But you made a really good point here about Cesaro and Kid. I don't know if anyone asked this in this Q&A, or I know someone asked it a couple weeks ago, but I love the tag team of Tyson Kidd and Cesaro. Not only are both guys underutilized, criminally underutilized, but first of all, they have awesome chemistry together. Second, they have the little mini promos that they do together, either backstage or in the little box and whatever, if you know what I'm talking about, before the matches. They are fucking great, hilarious. The Kid Natty dynamic is awesome. The whole fact thing I think is really, really funny, and it's great for their gimmick. They have charisma. Unlike what Vince says about Cesaro, I think he has the it factor, and he's showing it in this tag team with Tyson Kidd, who's also been underutilized for a couple of years now. Getting his first tag team title reign in nearly 5 years, which is crazy to think about. His first title reign in 5 years since he first became tag team champions with D.H. Smith back in 2010, right after WrestleMania. So I love the tag team, but not only that, too, is that, like you said, they have tag team maneuvers, not just their finisher, but even in the ring. And from what I read, they go down to the Performance Center and they work on these moves together, which is fucking great. More tag teams should do that. They should dedicate more time to coming up with more innovative stuff as tag teams. They did that last night in their match with the Usos, which I thought was really good. And I'm looking forward to what they can, bring to the table as tag team champions. And hopefully creative can get behind them and they don't make them lose all the time like they have done with past champions. And I think they're both great. They're both, breakout single stars at some point, especially Cesaro. Tyson Kidd too, but I think Cesaro could become world champion if they actually got behind the guy. We saw that about a year ago. But the thing is that, I don't like as much as the next guy pairing two singles guys together. But they are so awesome together, and like I said, they're not doing anything in singles competition, so you might as well put them together out of the tag team division, and they're really entertaining. I'm really glad they're tag team champions, and whether they're more fun than the Usos, I can see what you mean. I've complained for a long time now. I love the Usos, but individually, I couldn't care less about their singles matches, because like you said, Jimmy and Jay are the same exact person, not of course, visually, like as twins. They're identical twins. But even in the ring, they are the same exact wrestler, like you said. So I really have no interest in their singles matches, whereas Cesaro and Kidd both bring something different to the table. And like you said, it's, you know, it's different and it's innovative every time each guy's tagged into the match. So I absolutely agree with you there, and I think, like I said before, they were an awesome tag team. Justin G from Facebook has got a couple questions here. His first one was, when looking into the NXT roster, who do you see the WWE completely repackaging once they make it to the main roster? For example, Adam Rose was once a badass in NXT as Leo Kruger. Well, they didn't repackage Leo Kruger when he came to the main roster. They repackaged him, if you can recall, about a year ago, right before he came to the main roster. They promoted him to the main roster way too quickly. I mean, I know it was exciting at the time because I love the gimmick, and I still consider myself a Rosebud. They haven't done anything with him, though, and it really bothers me. And I'm not saying he should be pushed, but the whole, like, on the fence, babyface heel thing, attacking the bunny's gone, attacking the Rosebuds come out and, you know, follow him anyway, like some abused girlfriend or something, going back to his boyfriend, going back to her boyfriend, you know what I mean. That whole dynamic is so stupid, but, to what I was saying before, they kind of repackaged him right before he came to the main roster as Adam Rose. And that gimmick had been in the works for months. But they didn't debut it on TV until like March, and they brought him back on, and they brought him to the main roster in like May. So it wasn't too long at all. He had like 1 or 2 matches in NXT before they called him up. But I see what you mean, though. What wrestler could I see them repackaging when it comes to the main roster? Hopefully none of them. They're all great as is right now, and that's what bothers me. You don't need to have a fucking gimmick. I mean, technically you do, but if you're great of a wrestler as Sami Zayn or Kevin Owens or Neville, you don't need to be, you know, walking around having like a, I don't know, a speech impediment or something stupid like just to give him some character. You don't need that at all. Sami Zayn is over as the underdog right now in NXT. Adrian Neville is over because he's a great fucking wrestler. Like, he's not the greatest thing. He's not a Stone Cold Steve Austin in the mic, but in the ring, he's amazing. We saw that last week. Look no further than his match with Kevin Owens on NXT last week. I thought that was great. Phenomenal stuff. So, I think of all the people right now in NXT, I could see Adrian Neville, now that I mention him, being the one to be repackaged. There's been a few rumors of him being repackaged as a Mighty Mouse character, which is so, again, so fucking stupid. I don't want to see him become the next Hurricane. I think Adrian Neville has a lot more potential than Gregory Helms ever did. And once he eventually did, I mean, I talked about this with RJ on Wrestle Rant Radio a while ago, but once he broke out of the Hurricane shell, no one took him seriously because everyone was like, oh, that's a fucking Hurricane. Why should I care about Gregory Helms? That's why his career went nowhere in the WWE. Despite them trying to push him as like a singles guy, it went nowhere. Same thing with Kenny Dykstra. People saw him for years as, or not for years, but for a long time as a male cheerleader. With Dolph Ziggler, it was a little different because they repackaged him. He wasn't Nikki. He was Dolph. You would have never known it was the same guys unless you were like, you know, a hardcore fan or something. And he ended up, you know, working his way back up the roster. But Adrian Neville, going back to what I was saying before, will probably be the one to be repackaged by WWE, which sucks because, like I said, it's not necessary. The guy's an amazing talent. He should be over on his own. We saw him when he was on the main roster a couple months ago in that tag team on Raw back in like September or something. And he was over with the audience because he hit the red arrow and he's an awesome athlete and people got behind him. So I'm hoping that they don't, but they probably will. So if anyone that right now in NXT, I could see him being the one to be repackaged by the creative team up in the main roster. His next question was, after watching NXT this week, the rivalry between Kevin Owens and Finn Balor could be likely on the way. Do you think that at the next TakeOver event, we will see an Owens versus Zayn versus Balor matchup in a triple threat? I very much think so. I said this right after the first one. I think a triple threat is in order for the next special. Right now, I don't read the NXT spoilers. I don't want to know the NXT spoilers. But from what I understand, like from news and notes and whatever, from like non-spoiler notes, that the next TakeOver special could be scheduled for either May, late May, where like the last one was last year, when they had the second TakeOver one. Because last year they had the first one, Arrival, about almost exactly a year ago, this week a year ago, in February. And then they had the second one in May. So I'd be happy if it was in May. If it's in April, like a couple weeks after WrestleMania, I'd be fine with that too. May is more preferable though, so we have more time to build. Like, they didn't really matter for the last one. They only had 2 months, but they made the most of it and had a great fucking show. But still though, I think if they have 3 months, it gives them a little bit more time to build those storylines like we saw with our Evolution. So, with that being said, could we see that triple threat of the next live special? I absolutely think so. I think Sami Zayn, who was not at the most recent NXT tapings, or the one after the first TakeOver, or the first set of tapings after TakeOver a couple of weeks ago, he was not at. So he's not going to be on TV for a while. And like I said, I don't read the spoilers, but from what I understand, they might be doing Owens versus Balor before the next special. So a triple threat would be awesome. I think that'd be great. Zayn he will probably lose, which is okay. He shouldn't win back the belt if they're going to take him off to begin with. So you do that, then he He loses that match and he goes up right up the main roster. I think that's the best way to book it. And then you can continue on with Owens versus Bloor down in NXT for the next couple of months. So, yeah, I think a triple threat is in order for the NXT title at the next TakeOver special. Next question here. Being an avid fan of Finn Balor, aka Prince Devitt, I have watched him since his days as he founded, from the days that he founded the Bullet Club. Do you think that the WWE needs a dominant faction again to really bring in the much older fans, or do you think that it will be pointless to bring in the Bullet Club? So if you're asking, I don't know if you're asking two kind of questions here. One, if they should bring the Bullet Club, no. I think the Bullet Club is awesome as is. They don't need WWE handprints anywhere near that. The reason they are so popular right now is because they got over on their own. They're selling a crazy amount of t-shirts over New Japan, right here in America. Every indie event that I go to, I see people wearing them. AJ Styles is a part of it. Carl Anderson, a few others as well, the Young Bucks, who are great. But that said, though, I think Bullet Club, the reason that faction works so well is because they are like the anti-Japanese wrestling guys. I mean, they're amazing wrestlers, obviously, but they're like the American invaders over New Japan. And that's why the gimmick works so well. From what I've seen anyway, I watched the New Japan pay-per-view. I forgot what it was called, but at the start of the year last year, and I thought it was awesome. So, yeah, they don't need the Bullet Club. They're not going to bring the Bullet Club. I mean, they would ruin that stable within weeks. I promise you. If they ruin the Shield, or not the Shield, I'm sorry, that was an amazing group. If they could ruin the Nexus, which was a lot like the Bullet Club, just a little bit different, and the NWO when they brought them back in 2002, they can absolutely ruin these guys as well if they were going to bring them in. But do we need another dominant faction to bring in the much older fans? I don't think so. I mean, we had the Shield, which I think was a prime example when you asked that question. That was the first thing that came to my mind. The Shield was amazing, and they were one of the most dominant, if not the most dominant faction in the last 15 years, I would say, since like the Attitude Era. Better, as good, if not better than Evolution, based off when they were together, the matches they had, the promos they had, the feuds they had, in the aftermath of all three guys. I think they are better than Evolution, in more ways than one. I mean, that's very debatable, but in my opinion anyway. So that said, and the fact they beat Evolution twice last year. But anyway, I don't think they need another dominant faction. I don't think when the Shield was around, they brought in any new fans, or like a lot of new fans in terms of older fans. The only real instance in the last couple of years where people have told me, like, oh, I started watching again because of so-and-so, it was when CM Punk dropped the pipe bomb, because that was something new. It was something innovative. We've seen, I mean, the Shield was innovative, and they were new, obviously, but we had seen something similar like that before. We had seen the Nexus, we had seen the NWO, we had the Legacy. Like, we have dominant factions all the time. You can say that the Authority is a dominant faction, not the greatest faction in the world. I don't give a shit about Big Show and Kane in 2015, but we don't need another heel faction right now, especially with the Authority around. This isn't TNA, like where we need the Beatdown Clan, or we need the Revolution on every episode of the show. We already have enough with the Authority, and I'm hoping once the Authority wraps up, we don't have any heel GMs or heel Authority figures or heel stables for a long time to come. Hopefully, I mean, fingers crossed. I'm not holding my breath here, but one can only hope. His next question was, I was watching the Armageddon 2000 event on the WWE Network, and that was the event to feature an Armageddon Hell in a Cell match that features 6 opponents in the cell, and it was highlighted by The Undertaker chokeslamming Rikishi off the cell. Do you think that WWE will bring back the Armageddon Hell in a Cell match? Like you said, that was 2000, 15 years ago, which is amazing to think about, considering it's been that long. But if they haven't brought it back since, I mean, I'm not going to completely say, rule it out of the rule it out, like they will never bring it back. I think there is a chance. I don't think so. I don't know why they did to begin with. It was a good match. It wasn't like amazing. I wouldn't rank it up there as one of the best Hell in a Cell matches that I've seen, but it was innovative. And the only reason why I didn't love it was because it felt like not a clusterfuck, because it wasn't a bad match, but there was just so much going on. And, that the match will always be remembered for that one spot with Rikishi being tossed up, and it had a lot of star power. It had Austin, Taker, Angle, Austin, Taker, Angle, Rock, Rikishi, and someone else I can't remember right now. But that match was it was very good. It was not like historic or anything like that. It was historic in the sense it featured 6 people, but it was kind of a mess. So for that instance, I don't really care if it's brought back. I mean, Hell in a Cell now, unlike back then, is on the Hell in a Cell. It's its own pay-per-view now. It's not the same as what it was 15 years ago when they would bring back the match. I mean, that's the way I would love it to be again. And, unfortunately, I mean, I think the pay-per-view itself is very pointless, and they should just bring it back when they need it. But still, though, I think there's not a really good chance it can be brought back. I mean, there's always the possibility. I'm never, like I said before, I'm not going to say completely rule it out, never say never. But I do think there's the chances of it being brought back are very slim, especially since we have, the Hell in a Cell match every single year, the same exact time of the year, and it's always been, for the most part, one-on-one. We had that one triple threat a couple years ago in like 2011, I think it was, with Del Rio, Punk, and Cena, but that was it. So, no, I don't really care to see it back. I don't see it being brought back, but never say never. Paul Leslie's got a couple questions as well. His first one was, TNA tried it first with Crimson, didn't last long, and then the WWE tried it with Ryback. At this era, or in this era, when the IWC, is all aware of the current news and spoilers about pro wrestling, do you think it is wise, or it is wise, for any promotion to have an undefeated streak for a long-term Goldberg-like streak? No. I mean, it depends how it's handled. Like, right now we're seeing with Rusev, but I think the way it's being done with Rusev has been pretty darn well. He's worked its way up the ladder. And it really all depends with who you have in the equation. With Crimson, like you mentioned, the Crimson was terrible because Crimson was not good. He was not a good wrestler. People did not give two shits about him. And when they finally turned him heel, and like in early 2012, I think it was too little too late, and it completely ruined the guy's push. He turned heel, and I think he finally lost in like a 2-minute match like James Storm one time at like Slammiversary 2012, I think it was. And then we never saw him again. He was released like a year or two later. So that was a waste of time. But yeah, with Crimson, that was terrible. With Ryback, they booked themselves into a corner with that. I think if he beat Punk, it would have made for a big moment, but the timing of it, with Punk being in the midst of his longest reign, or one of the longest reigns, or the longest reign in WWE history in the last 25 years of the WWE Championship, they couldn't take that title off of him, so the timing was off. It worked because it got him over, and the aftermath wasn't bad either, as long as they gave him big wins, and they didn't. They fucked that up. That's what I'm hoping they don't do with Rusev. With Rusev, it's a little bit different because unlike Ryback is good, but he's not. I think Rusev is a little bit better of an athlete. I think he's capable of much more. And he's had a lot of good matches. Even his match with Big E about a year ago at Payback, I thought was really good for what it was. His match with John Cena last night was pretty good. His matches with Mark Henry and Big Show were, they weren't great, but his matches with Swagger I thought were pretty good. The feud is good. And that has, more so to do with a gimmick, and people wanted to see him lose. But that's a huge problem that you run into nowadays with the streaks, is that if you make it all about the streak, people won't care about the wrestler. But with Rusev, it's not about the streak. They are touting that he's undefeated, which is good, but they're not saying that, that it's not all about the streak. It's not 200-0. And even back when, like you mentioned, Goldberg, even when he was going undefeated, people knew that it was bullshit, that he wasn't going 180-0. Maybe some people did, I don't know. But I'm assuming that you don't have to, you don't need the internet to know that these guys are going 180-0 in the matter of like a couple months. Like, that was ridiculous. So Rusev, it's not all about the streak, so I'm not as worried about him. But like you said, it's not really the current news and the spoilers that kind of ruin the aspect of an undefeated streak in that angle. It's more so, it has more so to do with the fact that they don't know how to book them once they wrap up that streak. They just kind of, they ruin them. They make it all about the streak. And once they eventually lose, it's done with. Like with Vladimir Kozlov, it was all about the undefeated streak. The guy was he was not any good whatsoever. He didn't get any heat. And once the streak ended at the hands of Shawn Michaels around this time, like 5 or 6 years ago, I think it was in March of 2009, it was in a match to determine who would face Undertaker at WrestleMania. Once the streak was wrapped up, no one gave two shits about him. He became Santino's tag team partner for a couple of years, and then he got released. So, yeah, there's really no point in making it all about the streak. There's, unless the aftermath is there, which it rarely is, then I'm not really a huge fan of it. I mean, it gets some fan support, and it's all a matter of how it's handled. I'm not against the idea of having someone go undefeated, but it's more so how it's handled in the aftermath, which is crucial, especially in today's age, with people just getting lost in the shuffle constantly. And I'm hoping that doesn't happen to Rusev, where he will assumingly lose to John Cena at WrestleMania. Hopefully he does not meet that same fate as all the other people that I mentioned before. Paul's second question was, what would surprise you more, a former WWE star coming back to the company, or an ex-TNA wrestler who was never stepped foot in WWE showing up at NXT? Very good question. Definitely the latter. I mean, we see former WWE stars return all the time. Rhino, Brian Kendrick just recently in NXT. I mean, that was surprising. I mean, especially with Rhino. The guy had been in the company for 10 years, which was awesome, by the way. I love that. I love that fucking moment. But yeah, I think we see that kind of stuff all the time. We had the Dudley Boys return at the Rumble a couple of months ago. We had the Boogeyman, DDP. Like, that stuff happens all the time. It depends on, like, what case. But still, I think, that kind of stuff happens all the time. With an ex-TNA wrestler showing up in NXT or WWE in general, How often does that happen in terms of, like you said, who has never stepped foot in a WWE ring? Very, very rarely. Braden Walker, a.k.a. Chris Harris. RJ and I were talking about this a week ago on WrestleRant Radio, but he had never stepped foot in a WWE ring before. That wasn't shocking. I mean, a lot of people knew he was WWE bound, and it flopped. Awesome Kong, a.k.a. Karma, that was a really awesome debut. That kind of shocked me a little bit, and that was awesome again. It wasn't the way that it was handled. It was more so the timing and her getting pregnant and then everything that happened afterwards. And they really said that was bullshit, but whatever. With that was also a case of bad timing. But again, aside from those few people, there are not many ex-TNA people that show up in WWE that have never showed up in WWE before, a.k.a., AJ Styles, Bobby Roode, James Storm, Samoa Joe. I mean, technically he was in WWE before, like in 98 to 2001, but not as like a regularly contracted superstar as like a mid-carder. He was like a jobber. He was an enhancement talent. I don't really count that. A Styles, a Joe, a Roode, a Storm, a Daniels, a Kazarian. Kazarian was technically there for a while, for like a cup of coffee, and then he got released or quit, whatever, about 10 years ago. But still, it's not too often that you kind of see those people come over to WWE. It's because they don't really want them. As great as they are, and I would love to see Bobby Roode in WWE. I think he fits the mold to perfection. They already have enough stars as it is, and they make their own stars. They would rather, in my opinion, this is the way that I see it, WWE would rather build up a football player that has no wrestling experience whatsoever to become the next John Cena than they would take a Bobby Roode and bring him into the company. Like, they don't, maybe it's that TNA stench. I'm not really sure what it is. It doesn't happen with Ring of Honor, because Ring of Honor, they're kind of buddy-buddy with. They've taken Bryan, Punk, Rollins, Owens, Zayn, like all these people, and they were all great over there. They're great now in WWE, but with TNA, it's not really the same case for some reason. I don't know what it is. It's that TNA stench. Like I said before, AJ Styles, Joe were the faces of TNA for almost 10 years. So someone else asked about Joe, and I'll get to that in a couple minutes. He asked about Joe. Paul didn't. I'll get to that in a second. But, yeah, it's not very often that you see that happening, so that would be a huge surprise if we saw, like, a Storm or a Roode show up in WWE who had never been in the company before. So with his next question, like I just said, do you suppose that Triple H would have a change of heart and allow ex-TNA wrestlers like Samoa Joe in the NXT soon? It's not really Triple H who would have a change of heart. As far as I know, and I mean, take it with a grain of salt, but, take it for what it's worth. But I think Triple H is open to the idea of bringing in guys like Samoa Joe, and maybe AJ Styles. I'm not really sure. I never heard anything about that. They never even bothered to contact him when he left TNA. They didn't even bother. And even he said in an interview that he would be willing to go to NXT, but it is what it is. But it's not Triple H. It's more so Vince, from what I've heard. And that does not surprise me in the least. I know they signed Owens and Balor and Itami, but that had a lot to do with Triple H more than it did Vince. And they've all turned out to be successes so far in NXT, so that doesn't surprise me either, because they're all great talents. With Joe, again, I talked about this before, and I don't want to go on a huge rant about this. We talked about it on WrestleRant Radio. The clip's up here on the channel if you want to check it out. Personally, I do not think we will ever see Joe in WWE. I'm not going to say never. I think there is a chance, especially if Triple H is interested, and he's already brought in all these other guys. But there's a couple factors, and I know Joe is kind of buddy-buddy with John Cena. A few people pointed it out to me about a week ago when the news broke. I understand that, but with the shape he's currently in, the guy he could still put on a really good match. But let's face it, the guy's past his prime. TNA fucking wasted him for 5 or 6 years after his run with the TNA title. The guy was there for 10 years, and he had one run with the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Like, that's ridiculous. And they never bothered to push him again after that, or at least to the extent that he was back in 05, 06, 07, 08. And after that, he was a nobody. So, with that being said, there is something with Joe if they were to bring him to WWE. I wrote a whole article about it on Bleacher Report about a week ago, like potential matches that he can have if you want to go back and check it out. The link's down in the description box below, but shameless plug. But still, though, I think at this point, and I know he's 35, and they brought in Balor, who was like 30-something too, and the age isn't really a huge factor, but like I said, the guy is past his prime. I think the best thing for Joe right now, and he's not going to work a part-time schedule either, don't even think about it, if they were going to bring him into WWE. He would work as much as everyone else. So I think right now he might take the AJ Styles treatment and do what he's doing right now and go work over New Japan. He would work perfectly over there, go back to Ring of Honor maybe, kind of do what Del Rio is doing right now, kind of going back between Ring of Honor and Lucha and kind of doing other stuff on the indies. That's what I see Joe doing, which is probably the best thing for him. Like, even if he went to WWE, would they use him right? We'll never really know. So, like, again, I hate to say the old cliche, but never say never. There is a chance. I don't personally believe they would take him in. Would love to see it. Don't get me wrong. I think Joe in WWE would be fucking sweet if they were to use him right, like they have been with all the other guys. But TNA extension, stuff like that, because he was so long associated with that company, they may not want to bring him in, or at least Vince doesn't. Triple H, as much as he has an influence on these signings, at the end of the day, he's not the one making the decisions. It's Vince. So, and I know he made a case for the other guys, but those guys were never in TNA for as long as Joe was, or they were never in TNA at all. But still, it would be cool. I don't see it happening, but there is a slight chance. Don't see it happening. Again, maybe for a tryout would be awesome, but I just don't see it happening. Paul's next question: after being a part of the Wyatt family, his gimmick has gone a bit stale. Do you think Eric Rowan needs a new gimmick soon? I do. I don't think Eric Rowan right now is... I don't think he has a lot of potential. I'm not going to say the same thing with him like I did with Luke Harper. I don't think he's great. But the booking of him, the booking of Eric Rowan in the last couple of months has been so fucking weird. They put the guy on Team Cena, which was cool. Like, people were like, oh, this is interesting. They kind of got him to him for a while. They were pushing him like crazy, going into TLC, taking out Cesaro, and he was slamming the Big Show, like all this other stuff. And then you make him lose to the Big Show at TLC, which I thought was stupid as all hell. And then people are like, oh, he'll get his big win, it'll mean more. Bullshit. He never got his win over the Big Show. He squashed him, as I speak of this, only a couple of days ago on SmackDown. And then on the pay-per-view last night, they lost to the Authority. So, that sucks for as well as, Ryback and Ziggler. But with Rowan, like, again, I don't see him being a top star, but I think he deserves to be a mid-carder. And it's not even like he's over, but he's decent, and they could be doing more with him. And I'll say the same thing with him, like I said with Luke Harper. Why not just put the two back together? If they're not doing anything with Luke, and they're not doing anything with Eric, and they're, completely directionless right now, and they're always losing, why not just put the Wyatt family back together? Or at least those two. At least put Harper and Rowan back together as a tag team. It could add to the division. It gives them something to do. Maybe give them the tag team title run that they should have gotten last summer. And it would benefit everybody involved. Because right now, wasting them does, it's a complete waste of their time and everyone's time, to be honest with you. But Andre G, his question was, do you think Kevin Owens will be the face of WWE since he is Triple H's pet project? I don't know if I could see Kevin Owens as the face of WWE. He's like 35 as it is right now, or something along those lines. So I can't see him as the face, but I can see him being a top star if they can push him properly. A feud with John Cena would be awesome. I've talked about this before here on the show. But, yeah, I think he has a lot of potential. I don't see it being the face of the company. I don't know who is going to be the face of the company. And someone else asked a question about that, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I could see I could see Kevin Owens being a top star in the company because he has a hell of a future ahead of him if they can book him properly. Face, no. Hell of a star, yes. His second question was, do you believe Roman Reigns is Vince's last project before stepping down? Well, the inaccuracy with your comment there is that Vince will probably never step down. He's probably going to die on the throne. I can swear to you of that. That Vince will never step down. And I think he even said in a recent interview, at JohnNapp17, my buddy John on Twitter, mentioned to me when I was talking to him on the phone for a while on Friday, I think it was, he mentioned to me that in that interview that he did with the Muscle and Fitness magazine or something, that he admitted that WWE will be in better hands when he steps down or, is done, when he's done in power. It's going to be in the better hands with Triple H and Stephanie, which is really, really interesting to me. I know Triple H and Steph won't be the only ones, leading the company. It's going to be a lot of other executives as well, business people on the corporate side, but that was really interesting to me. But, no, I don't think Vince, at 69, he's still looking great. Some people are looking like, oh, he might die soon. I don't think so. Unless the guy has a heart attack or something, Vince is going to be around for a long time. I can promise you that, because he's not stepping down. He's going to die on the throne. I can swear to you of that. So, no. With that being said, I don't think Roman Reigns is his last pet project, because Vince is going to be here for a long time. So he's going to have a lot more projects in years to come. At I_Yodio, this question was, if you were the WWE booker, how would you book the primetime players to go on a road to the tag team titles? It's hard to say. It's a tag team division, so it's a little hard to say they don't give them... like you said, in this scenario where I'm booking, I would give them more character development. Sure, you can make them win matches and stuff, but, give us a segment where they talk about their breakup, why they're getting back together, what their goal is nowadays, or, now getting back together, and this time around... like I said, they did that with Darren Young about a week ago on the Raw Fallout video on their YouTube page, but a 2-minute on YouTube isn't really going to accomplish much. Put that on TV. You have 3 fucking hours. At least, take 20 seconds of that time to devote it to a backstage segment with Young and O'Neal talking about why they got back together, what their goal is, why they want to win the tag team titles, stuff like that. Give them some character development. People are going to care no matter what, because then they're a really entertaining tag team and they're really good wrestlers. But if you give them some character development, then more people will care, and stuff like that. I think it's a better reason to put them back together, aside from, oh, we'll just put them back together, show that we failed, breaking them up, whatever. So that's what I would do. I would give them some more character development, give them some wins, have them go maybe on an undefeated streak or something, and give them the tag team titles, have them beat Cesaro and Kid for those straps at some point down the line. At Brad Berdar has got a couple questions here. His first one: when Sami Zayn makes his main roster debut, do you think he should use a special tornado DDT to the turnbuckle? Absolutely. I don't know if you mean as a finisher or anything, but as like a regular move, totally. Not like in every single match, because then it kind of lessens the specialness of the move. But I think on a special occasion, like we see on the Takeover specials, absolutely. I think it's an amazing move, and on the main roster, people would like ooh and awe for it. I think it's great. A second question: what do you think has been the #1 thing that has prevented Tyson Kidd from winning a singles title? They never really saw anything in him until just recently, and they put him back in the tag team with Cesaro, which is awesome, like I said before. But and I don't see him again, like a Neville or the other guys. He is limited in that I don't think he can get beyond a certain level. Like, I don't see Tyson Kidd as being a world champion, but he can sure as hell be a nice mid-card guy. As an IC champion, absolutely I could see that. I know the title means nothing, but I could see him holding that championship, or the U.S. championship for that matter. And he contended for the title a few times in late 2012 and never won it. But they probably were kind of reluctant to push him because they never really, he was like, oh, he has shitty mic skills, even though he was never given the time of the day to talk on TV, but whatever. That's probably why they never pushed him until just recently. And in giving the platforms that they have on NXT, on Total Divas, they finally woke up and said, hey, this guy's a hell of a talent. Let's push this guy. I mean, it took him 5 years to finally fucking do it, but that's what happened. And when they first started to do it, they gave him a few singles wins, and then they paired him up with Cesaro. But I do think when that tag team runs its course and they break up, which hopefully won't be for a long time, they can finally give him a singles run, which he deserves, in my opinion. Third question here from Brad: why is it that despite having one of the most talented female rosters ever, Nikki Bella is Divas champion? So to her credit, she's come a long way. I'm not a Bella's fans. I'm not a Bella Twins fan at all. But I do think both of them, especially Nikki, has come a long way since they came back to the company about 2 years ago. She's improved in the ring. As a character, I think she is great. I think on her own, she's a lot more potential. The Bella Twins heel shtick has been done to death over the last 5-6 years. They need to do away with that pronto. I think Brie was so much better on her own as a babyface diva, as a singles competitor. They just go back and watch the segments with her and Stephanie, which I thought were great. They closed out fucking Raw a couple times last summer. And now, Nikki's lacking. Maybe they're leading to that on the road to WrestleMania. I doubt it. I think they just kind of abandoned that storyline. And if they do, then people won't give a shit because they already saw her, with Nikki for the last couple months. But whatever. Despite having one of the most talented female rosters, why is she champion? Because, like I said, I think she deserves it. I know it's a bold claim, but I think as a character, she has come a long way. She's really, really good. She showed that last summer. She showed that in the fall. Sure, the feud was terrible. The I hope you die in the womb shit was fucking horrendous, but her delivery of it was really good. She improved as an actor. She improved in the ring. And I know her match with Paige was not the best example. They just weren't really given the time. The story wasn't there. That's not her fault, though. That's not Paige's fault. That's creative's fault for not getting behind them. Insert your own sex joke there, and not giving them the time of the day in the ring to really showcase what they're all about. So it's not really, let's put it this way. There are far worse choices you could have as your Divas champion right now. You could have Cameron. You could have Rosa. You could have Eva Marie, God forbid. So it could be a lot worse. Look at it that way. And his next question, or his final question here, what are your thoughts on Dr. Chris Amon suing CM Punk for his defamatory comments? So a huge controversy about this. I'm not even going to try to defend CM Punk here. And I know some people were like, oh, he didn't call him up by name. I think he did. I think he did mention Dr. Amon in his podcast, whether it be him or called. Someone mentioned him by name, because I remember that when I was listening to the podcast when it first came out. But I don't want to go on a huge rant about this. We'll probably talk about this more in depth on Wrestle Rant Radio tomorrow, hopefully. But in the meantime, though, to kind of give you your answer, the reason, what are my thoughts on it? The whole video thing I thought was so stupid. It didn't prove anything. The CM Punk said in the podcast that if the huge lump that he had on his back was like below his tights anyway, they wouldn't have been visible. You know, no, the whole health thing checks out. Like, you go back to late 2013, there were reports of CM Punk not looking good, you know, getting sick in the ring, and he explained why in the podcast. It could all make sense. And I don't know why you would lie about something like that. Maybe to get sympathy. I'm not really sure. So maybe there's a chance that CM Punk is lying. I'm not saying that he's completely telling the truth, but there is the, you know, the way that WWE went about it. I'll say this: the way that WWE went about it was so stupid. I understand, you know, making their case, like CM Punk, like he went on a public forum and, you know, made his case, trashed the company. That's fine. I'm okay with that, because the WWE did the same thing with Punk. I mean, they went on a public forum. They said, you know, these are the charges against him. I get that, but the video was so fucking dumb. It didn't prove anything. I didn't need to see close-ups of CM Punk's ass for 3.5 minutes. I didn't even watch the whole thing. I watched a minute. I'm like, this is so fucking stupid. It's not proving anything. Like, why would you put this together if you know it doesn't prove a single damn thing? Because the lump is, if anything, probably below where his tights were, so you wouldn't have seen it anyway. It's so stupid. But, yeah, those are my thoughts on that. Hopefully it blows over soon. I mean, I think, needless to say, there's a lot of bad blood there still between Punk and the WWE. He hasn't commented on it at all. Maybe he will on Twitter. I'm not really sure. But I'm fine with them suing him for the comments, as long as Punk can back up his comments with health reports from the doctor that he had the thing Popeye or whatever. Then it's okay. But the whole video thing I just thought was so hilariously stupid. This is so completely unnecessary in my opinion. At Raw's Gibby, his question was, how long do you think a guy like John Cena, Stone Cold, how long do you think a guy like John Cena, Stone Cold, Hulk Hogan should stay on the top until a new guy comes around? It really all depends on person-to-person basis in terms of injuries, stuff like that. Creatively, Hulk Hogan was on top for 10 years. Not 10 years. I mean, he kind of got started in the early 80s, like 84 when Hulkamania was born, and then kind of died down in the early 90s. So about 10 years. John Cena right now, over 10 years, or just about 10 years. He won his first world title about 10 years ago. And Steve Austin was only on top for, 4 years? But he was still the hottest, babyface in WWE history, arguably. So, it really all depends, and he kind of had to wind down his career due to injury, so it really all kind of depends. And someone brought this up to me not too long ago, but John Cena, even though he is like the Hulk Hogan of this generation, my roommate actually brought this up to me, which is pretty interesting because he's not like an avid fan, but he does watch from time to time, that Cena will always be a part of it. Like Hulk Hogan still shows up, and he's like 60-something years old on Raw, whatever. He still has an involvement with the company. That's going to be John Cena. Maybe not to that extent. I think when he hangs it up, he's going to hang it up. He's not going to be in TNA having a final few matches with Ric Flair and Sting. I don't see that happening, but I do see him continuing to have an involvement with WWE past, when he's done. He's not going to retire like Shawn Michaels and go away. John Cena, as the face of the company, is going to continue to be here once he is done wrestling. He's going to, he's going to continue to, he's going to wrestle less maybe, and then maybe not wrestle at all, but maybe be an authority figure or having a direct involvement with the show. We'll have to wait and see. But, yeah, really, it all kind of depends on a person-to-person basis. John Cena still has a lot of money left in him in terms of merch sales. I hate the character. They need to switch it up. I completely agree with that. But, in terms from, like, merch sales and stuff like that, they haven't really slowed down at all, if anything at all. So, in the last couple of years, there's no reason to, kind of tone him down as the face. They should start building up new faces in the meantime. I completely agree with that. But there's no reason to think that John Cena is done as the face of the company. Because, he's still selling strong. Until that dies down, there's really no reason to fear that Cena will be done as the face of the company, or believe that that's the case. At Raymond_Marceau, RJ, my co-host from WrestleMania Radio, his question was, with most of the card developed for WrestleMania, where do you see Daniel Bryan on the card? Really good question. A lot of people were asking that last night on Twitter right after the event concluded. As it stands right now, we'll probably find out more tonight, so if you're watching this after Raw, you know better than I would. But it looks like at WrestleMania, he's either facing Dolph Ziggler or Sheamus, which is probably more likely. They're going to bring him back as a heel. Do that whole feud. The match could be really good. Don't get me wrong, their past matches, their Extreme Rules match, go back and watch it on the network from 2012, I thought was great. But is there really a dying need to do that feud for like the third or fourth time? That's so pointless. That's so stupid. There's no need to do that feud. To do that match again for a third time at WrestleMania. It's no Austin Rock. It's fucking... Daniel Bryan and Sheamus, who were never the greatest of rivals. Had great matches, never the greatest of rivals, though. So that said, what happens to Daniel Bryan now, I really can't say. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. But I would put my money on a match with Sheamus or Ziggler on the card. Unfortunately, it's going to be like 5 or 6 down after being the main event last year. But, that's what happens. That's what happened with the rest of the cards, with Orton, Rollins, and Wyatt and Taker, and Triple H and Sting, and Lesnar and Reigns. That leaves Bryan 5 or 6 matches down. It sucks, and Cena and Rusev too. But it's the way it's got to be. I would be all on board for Bryan and Ziggler. And I don't want to see it to become a triple threat, by the way. I don't want to see Reigns, Bryan, and Lesnar. I think that ship has sailed. So there's, I don't want to see that again. I think we saw that last year, and there's really no point to do it again. Reigns versus Bryan versus Lesnar on paper doesn't even, even Orton, Batista, and Bryan on paper, it didn't seem like the most intriguing matchup ever. It didn't really have that same magic or feel to it, same chemistry. That has even less chemistry. This triple threat would be with Bryan, Reigns, and Lesnar. So I don't really want to see that. Same exact thing from last year. Keep it with Reigns and Lesnar. People weren't overly booing Reigns last night. I know it was fucking Memphis, and they were a terrible crowd. But, still, I think the fans might be on a side on the road to WrestleMania. Remains to be seen what happens at the show itself with that hectic crowd. But still, I think that the plan should be Reigns and Lesnar, and then you do. I would love to see Bryan and Ziggler, but I think right now it's looking like Bryan versus Sheamus at WrestleMania, unfortunately. RJ's second question. Reports are out that Brock Lesnar may stay after WrestleMania. Could you see him winning and then Seth Rollins cashing in? Yes, there's a chance. I wouldn't put my money on it. Even you came up with this. We talked about this back in the summer. But I could see Reigns winning the title. Everyone has predicted this. This is not like my bold prediction, but Reigns could win, then Rollins cashes in. I still don't say that Rollins cashes in at WrestleMania. It would be awesome. I just don't see it happening. But it would be better, now that I think about it, if Roman Reigns was the one for Rollins cashing on. Because when you think about it, Lesnar has been undefeated for the most part. Aside from that one fucking DQ loss, which was stupid, about, over in Night of Champions, about over in September, a couple months ago. He beat the streak. He's been plowing everyone in his way. There's no real reason for him to. His first loss should mean something, is basically what I'm getting at here. He should not be cashed in on and then lose that way. That's why I was fearful when Rollins first cashed in back in Night of Champions, because I didn't want Lesnar to lose in that fashion, or even that soon. But, yeah, that said, though, he needs to lose in a one-on-one match. I would be much happier with Reigns finally being the one to beat the one in 21-1. But then again, why would you have the one to beat the one in 21-1, have him lose to the guy in like 20 seconds, Seth Rollins or whatever? I don't know. We're going so far down the rabbit hole here. I don't know where you even go with this. But of the two, if I had to pick someone for Rollins cashing on at WrestleMania, it would have to be Roman, because I think Brock's first loss should mean something after beating the streak last year. At JJF tweets, is there a single more misused superstar than Luke Harper at the moment? And what would you do with him? That's a really good question. I think Cesaro was up there as well, but he's tag team champion now, same with Tyson Kidd. So, yeah, Luke Harper is very misused right now. I think they could be doing a lot more with him. I think it's great. I already said this before. But what would I do with him if they're not going to push him as a mid-carder? Put him back together with Eric Rowan. I know that kind of shows failure, like, oh, we have to crawl back to this tag team because we failed to put him over as a single star. But you know what? Just bite the bullet, and you got to do what you got to do. It's better than seeing him job out to whoever on Superstars. Like, I'd rather see him and Rowan kicking ass in the tag team division as opposed to fucking doing nothing and losing all the time. It's a complete waste of time. So, if they're not going to, push him as a single star, which they haven't in the last couple months since he lost the IC title back in December at TLC to Ziggler, they might as well put him back together with Rowan, ASAP. It doesn't have to necessarily be with Bray. They don't have to get the whole Wyatt family back together. But I'd be happy with just Rowan and Harper getting back together in the tag team division. It's better than nothing. And final question here. At the average grunt, or two final questions. Should replays be saved for after the match to avoid using important moments, or missing important moments? Good question. I'm fine with them doing replays during the match up to, as someone, like if I'm tweeting or something, I know this is the case for a lot of people. Maybe not. Maybe I'm in the minority here, but if I'm sending out a tweet and I miss something, I'm like, oh shit, what was that move? And if I can't replay it or something like that, if I'm not on the network and it's on TV or something, I appreciate the replays. Like, I want to see it ASAP. I don't want to wait until after the matchup. But if they're going to do that, they need to get better camera work. Like, their camera people right now are so fucking bad. I don't know what it is. I love the production team. They're amazing. They put together some of the best shit, and I give them credit. But some of their camera work is so bad. And I think it has a lot to do with Kevin Dunn. The guy's got to go. The guy is past his prime. Like Vince, he is out of touch. So he needs to go. He's not the best guy in charge of of that side of things. The camera work right now leaves a lot to be desired. So I'm fine with them doing the replays of the big moves during the match, but the way, like, get somebody else on the shit happening in the ring so we don't miss anything. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So that's my 2 cents on that. And then final question from @CFB Wrestling. Their question was, with NXT's increasing popularity, do you see a time in which its regular show goes through 2 hours and its specials to 3? I'm not going to say it's never going to happen, but would I like to see it happen? No. I think NXT, the way it is great. And at an hour length, and that's all it needs to be. Why Lucha Underground and NXT are so awesome is because they're only an hour long. They are easy to digest. 2 hours is okay. That's what Raw was before they went to 3 hours. That's what SmackDown is. That's what Impact is. It's not the worst thing in the world. And the specials are perfect at 2 hours because you can fit in all the stuff. Like they had, 5 or 6 matches on the card for the last special. They all got enough great time. They all got the amount of time they should have. They left enough time for the main event and then some. So why, kind of stray away from that? If it works, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. Pretty much what it is. It goes back to that same cliche. So no, I don't want to see them go to 2 hours for their regular show. I think as it is, that's why it's so great. We saw it last week. The show was an hour long. They fit in like 5 or 6 things. And everything wasn't like 10 minutes long or anything, but the way they booked it, Rhino's return, Solomon Crow's debut, a nice women's match, a nice tag team match, a new feud kind of coming up in the tag team division with Enzo Amore and Colin Cassidy versus Blake and Murphy, and then an awesome main event. That happened in less than an hour. The show was like 53 minutes or something like that. If they could do that with NXT, there's really no reason for them to go to 2 hours and then risk. The roster isn't even that big. It's not like Raw or anything like that. So there's really no reason to do that. And then you save whoever wasn't on the show this week, you use them next week. Like, I like that formula. So I wouldn't do that. Would they do that at some point? Like with Raw? Like, with Raw it's different because they get advertising and shit. But they're thinking, their Raw is so great at 2. Why not go to 3? And then it just ruins it for everybody. Then they have to go crawling back to 2 hours, which I don't think they'll ever do with Raw. I've talked about that last week. But, still, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. Keep it with 1 hour for the shows and for 2 hours for these specials. So that's going to wrap it up with today's edition of #AskGSM. Always appreciate you guys sending in the questions. If you want to send in a question, you can leave a comment down below on this video. You can tweet me on Twitter at WrestleRant with #AskGSM. Or you can leave a post on my Facebook page at GrahamGSMMatthews on the page itself, or leave a comment on the post that I usually put up on Sunday nights. All the links are down below in the description box. And speaking of such, make sure to share, subscribe, like, and comment. All support is greatly appreciated. As always, guys, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you guys in my next Q&A video next Monday. Catch you guys then.